In a world that pulls at your emotions from every direction, where anger erupts in traffic jams, anxiety consumes quiet moments, and disappointment follows broken expectations like shadows at dusk, there exists an ancient wisdom that cuts through the chaos. 2,000 years ago, in the marble halls of Rome and the dusty streets of Athens, philosophers discovered something profound: that while we cannot control what happens to us, we possess absolute dominion over how we respond. The Stoics understood that emotional mastery is not about suppressing feelings, but about becoming the architect of your inner world. Today, as notifications flood our minds and uncertainty clouds our future, these ancient secrets offer a path to unshakable peace. The first secret lies in the sacred pause between stimulus and response. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when criticism stings your pride, when disappointment threatens to overwhelm, the Stoics taught that rushing to react is the path of the weak. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we have the power to pause, to breathe, to create space between what happens and how we choose to respond. This delay is not hesitation, it is wisdom. In that moment of stillness, you reclaim your power. You transform from a victim of circumstance into the conscious author of your response. The person who masters this pause masters their entire emotional landscape. For in that brief silence lies the difference between reacting from wounded ego and responding from centered strength. The ancient practice of evening reflection becomes a mirror for the soul, revealing patterns that daylight obscures. Seneca would end each day by examining his thoughts, actions, and reactions with the detachment of a scientist studying data. This is not self-criticism, but self-awareness. When you write down what triggered your anger, what fed your anxiety, what stirred your joy, you begin to see the threads that weave your emotional tapestry. You discover that your reactions often follow predictable patterns, that certain situations consistently unbalance you, and most importantly, that awareness is the first step toward transformation. The pen becomes your tool of liberation, each honest entry a step toward emotional freedom. True emotional strength emerges when you learn to observe your feelings as if watching clouds pass through an open sky. The Stoics understood that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents of your inner world. When anger arises, instead of becoming anger, you become the observer of anger. When sadness visits, you do not merge with sadness, but witness its presence. This detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It allows you to feel without drowning, to experience without being consumed. Like a mountain that remains unmoved by the storms that rage around its peaks, you learn to remain centered while emotions flow through you, temporary and impermanent as morning mist. In the theater of human interaction, the wise person learns to pause before the curtain rises on their response. Epictetus taught that our first impressions are often clouded by assumption, projection, and past wounds. When someone speaks harshly, when events unfold unexpectedly, when life presents its puzzles, the emotionally mature pause to truly see what is before them. They ask not, "How does this make me feel?" but what is actually happening here? This observation is surgical in its precision, cutting through the fog of immediate reaction to reach the truth beneath. In this space of clear seeing, appropriate responses emerge naturally, uncolored by the distortions of unchecked emotion. Perhaps no Stoic concept is more liberating than amor fati, the love of fate, the radical acceptance of what is. This is not passive resignation, but active embrace of reality as it unfolds. When you stop fighting against the unchangeable, when you cease demanding that life conform to your preferences, a profound peace settles into your bones. The rain falls whether you approve or not. People act according to their nature, not your wishes. Events unfold according to forces beyond your influence. The person who embraces this truth stops wasting energy on futile resistance and instead channels that power toward what they can actually control: their thoughts, their choices, their responses. This acceptance is not defeat. It is the ultimate victory over suffering. The ancient philosophers drew a clear line between what belongs to you and what belongs to the world. And in this distinction lies the secret to unshakable peace. Your thoughts, your choices, your values, your responses, these are your kingdom, and you rule there absolutely. Everything else, other people's opinions, the weather, the stock market, the past, the future, exists beyond your borders. When you stop trying to control what is not yours to control, you discover the immense power that comes from fully owning what is. This is not limitation, but liberation. The person who grasps this distinction never again wastes energy on the impossible and instead becomes a master of the possible. The ego whispers that you are the center of the universe, that slights are personal attacks, that your reputation defines your worth. The Stoics saw through this illusion and taught a different truth: that you are a small part of a vast whole, that most of what happens around you has nothing to do with you, and that your worth comes not from external validation, but from internal virtue. When you release the need to be right, to be recognized, to be praised, you become free to act from wisdom rather than wounded pride. The person who has conquered their ego moves through the world with quiet confidence, unshaken by criticism, unmoved by flattery, guided by principle rather than the desperate need for approval. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and the Stoics knew that deliberately choosing discomfort builds the muscles of resilience. They would sleep on hard floors, eat simple food, walk in cold rain, not from masochism, but from wisdom. When you voluntarily embrace minor hardships, you train yourself for the major challenges that life will inevitably present. The person who has practiced being uncomfortable is never at the mercy of circumstances. They have learned that they can endure more than they imagined, that discomfort is temporary, that they are stronger than their conditions. This practice transforms you from someone who fears difficulty into someone who faces it with calm confidence. Words spoken in anger often say more about the speaker than their target, and the wise person learns to receive insults with the detachment of a scientist observing data. When someone lashes out, when criticism comes your way, when judgment flows from others, you have a choice: to take it personally or to see it clearly. The Stoic understands that other people's words are expressions of their inner state, their wounds, their limitations. To react with anger to an insult is to let another person's lack of control trigger your own lack of control. Instead, the emotionally mature person receives harsh words like rain. They note them, they assess if there is any truth worth considering, and then they let them pass without allowing external weather to disturb their inner climate. In a world obsessed with external validation, the Stoic finds freedom in the pursuit of virtue for its own sake. They ask not, will this make me popular, but is this right? They measure success not by applause, but by character. When your worth comes from how well you embody courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance, you become immune to the fluctuations of public opinion. The person who seeks virtue above validation moves through life with steady purpose, undistracted by the noise of approval and disapproval that drives others to emotional extremes. This internal compass provides navigation through any storm, for it points always toward what is good, regardless of what is convenient or praised. Pain, the Stoics taught, is life's greatest teacher, and the person who learns to see suffering as training rather than punishment develops an unshakable strength. When difficulty arrives, when loss strikes, when challenges test your limits, you have a choice in how you frame the experience. You can see yourself as a victim of cruel fate, or you can see yourself as an athlete being prepared for greater competitions. Every hardship becomes a weight in the gymnasium of character. Every setback becomes an opportunity to practice resilience. Every disappointment becomes a chance to cultivate wisdom. The person who reframes pain as training transforms suffering into strength, finding meaning in difficulty and emerging from trials more capable than before. True strength is invisible to the casual observer. It does not announce itself with loud words or dramatic gestures. It whispers in the pause before response, in the calm maintained during crisis, in the grace shown under pressure. The emotionally mature person moves through a chaotic world like a lighthouse stands against storm waves, present, steady, unshaken. They have learned that freedom is not the absence of constraint, but the mastery of response. That peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of inner stability. That strength is not the power to control everything, but the wisdom to control what matters most. In developing this invisible strength, you join the ranks of those who have discovered life's greatest secret, that the external world may rage and change and challenge, but the inner world remains forever under your command. This is the ultimate liberation, the final victory, the secret that transforms ordinary individuals into people of extraordinary resilience and unshakable peace.